Welcome everybody, my name is Christian and today I'm starting a very special series where I am going to go through every upgrade for every different upgrade slot for both the Empire and the Rebels and the neutral cards as well for Star Wars Armada from the core set all the way through Wave 4. I'll definitely update this again once the future waves come out, but for now, Waves 1 through 4 are going to be covered today. So first, I'm going to discuss the defensive retrofit slot. There are only 4 upgrades currently for this slot: ECM, advanced projectors, redundant shields, and cluster bombs. And I kind of already spoiled it by reading it in the order that I think those upgrades are most useful. Now, for this whole series, there are obviously certain circumstances and certain synergies that make a upgrade particularly valuable than the other ones that I have above it. But this is a general overall, most of the time kind of scenario. Before I go into more detail, I wanted to list the ships that can take the defensive retrofit slot. For the Rebel side, there's the Assault Frigate, the CR-90, the MC-80, all versions of it, and the MC-30. I find it most useful on the Assault Frigate and the MC-80. On the Imperial side, currently only the Imperial Star Destroyer 2 can take a defensive retrofit slot. So my rank number 1 is ECM. This is an amazing upgrade that keeps that brace token available and is essentially an auto-include for most of my ships that have a brace token and have an ECM. There's no need for having this on a Corvette. It's definitely not worth the points since it doesn't have a brace. But any ship that only has one brace, it's really good to have an ECM on it. For Star Destroyers, for MC-80s, for the Rebel Assault Frigate, these all really need ECM to keep them alive, to keep those accuracies from taking away your brace. It can turn a 10-point damage down to a more manageable 5-point damage, and it makes a huge difference. My number 2 upgrade for this slot is advanced projectors. It's a great upgrade. It allows you to use a redirect token to choose more than one hull zone, and that it doesn't need to be from a non-adjacent side. This is particularly good for those Rebel ships that have a large number of shields and not as many hull values as their Imperial enemies. The MC-80 and the Assault Frigate would definitely do well with this upgrade, and maybe even a Corvette that you want to keep particularly alive. However, the XI-17 turbo lasers really knocked the wind out of it. In a foolish move, the FAQ still says that you can only move a total of 1 damage with the redirect, even with advanced projectors. I really believe that it will be so much better if you could only move 1 damage per hull zone, so the advanced projectors would still have some value to them. It's 6 points and it's completely undone by a upgrade. I really disagree with that ruling, and I hope eventually they change it. That said, it's still a really great power. The third one on my list is redundant shields. It's expensive, but it's pretty cool, and it pairs particularly well if you have projection experts. That way, this can help make up for the shield that you're giving away. Also, it's at the beginning of the status phase, in the beginning, so you don't even need to wait for this ship to activate. And number 4, an upgrade that I've never used and I've never seen used, is the 5-point cluster bombs. There's no way it's worth 5 points. As you'll learn in this series, I don't like discard cards for the most part, and cluster bombs is not worth the 5 points. Essentially, you roll 4 dice, and every hit or crit gets count as a damage. So, statistically, you're going to give about 2 damage, maybe 3 if you're lucky. And that's it, for 5 points. I mean, when you think about how a TIE fighter is 8 points, or a A-Wing is worth 11 points, and how much useful they are compared to a once 2-point damage. Now, if you could do this multiple times, or if it was something that you would just have to activate, then maybe it'll be worthwhile. But it's only one time, so it's way at the bottom. Before I go into further detail, I wanted to list the ships that can have the offensive retrofit slot. For the Imperial side, both the Imperial Star Destroyer 1 and 2 can take this upgrade, the Raider, the Assault Carrier, and the Interdictor. On the Rebel side, the MC-80 Command and the GR-75 are the only 2 ships that can take this upgrade slot. The next upgrade slot that I'm going to rank is the offensive retrofit. There's only 5 for these, and this time I'm not going to spoil it by listing them all off. And to be fair, most of these are, actually all of these are pretty useful. They all have their benefits, and none of them are terrible, unlike the cluster bombs that we had in the defensive retrofit. For the offensive retrofit, my number 5 is the point defense reroute. It's 5 points, but it's way better to have ordnance experts if you have a black reroll. Also, since it's only the blue critical, you're only going to get that 25% of the time. And there's so many other dice modifiers out there that to take up that whole offensive retrofit slot just for this, it's not all that useful. So that's all I have to say for that. Number 4 is quad laser turrets. They're pretty good. They're not terrible. They're just not as good as the one that is above it. It's 5 points, and it allows you to roll 1 counter against a squadron whenever they attack you. Now, most of the time, I really don't think this is worth the 5 points, because 1, unless you put it on all your ships, the enemy is just going to focus their fighters and bombers against the ships that don't have it. So the only way this would be particularly useful is maybe if you put it on your flagship that has your admiral that you think is going to be really vulnerable, and you know your opponent likes to build carrier builds. The other one that could be useful is putting it on the Instigator, which is a Imperial Raider title card that allows squadrons at distance 1 to be treated as if they're engaged by 2 additional squadrons. So that means that they either have to attack you or attack another fighter that they're engaged with. They can't move, they can't attack a different capital ship. So for that combination, maybe it would work. But for the most part, it's too risky of a gamble even at 5 points, because 1, maybe your opponent doesn't bring that many fighters, and if they do, they're just going to go after different targets. So I don't find it all that useful. Number 3 I have as expanded hangar bay. This is a very good upgrade, very useful, particularly for those that are dedicated carriers. However, I prefer Antilles or Wolf Yularen because he does the exact thing and helps the other commands. Both of them are only 7 points, while expanded hangar bay is 5. But for those 2 extra points, Antilles is an expanded hangar bay whenever you have a navigate command, because you get an extra token, which gives you 1 more squadron you can activate. Same thing with Wolf. Whenever you use that token, you go ahead and get it back. It's just as good as the expanded hangar bay whenever you have a squadron command. However, unless you're giving out a lot of tokens with Tarkin, or you really have a completely dedicated carrier, GR-75, or assault carrier, there's probably going to be other commands mixed in there. If you do that with Antilles, then you can go ahead and make those things more powerful. Not only do you get to do a navigate now, but you get to change your speed at some point in the future. So expanded hangar bay is good. It's definitely something that you should consider using, but you should ask yourself, it would be better if you put Antilles as an officer, or Wolf if you're an Imperial. Number 2, the PHYLON Q7 tractor beams. Now this is situational because I would only recommend putting this on medium or preferably large ships. So that brings down the number of ships you can do. It's 6 points, but you can lower the speed or take away a token of any ship up to range 5, which is pretty impressive. So if you're a Star Destroyer and you want to keep that Corvette from wiggling out of your way, or against a GR-75 transport, and you want to keep it closer to you so you have more of that blue dice for those accuracies, you can go ahead and lock on the tractor beams. And this isn't a discard, you just have to exhaust it. So you can do it every turn, and for different ships, it's really useful power. Number 1, and all these are good, but this one I find the most useful, is boosted comms. It's only 4 points, and it can turn a wasted command into a devastating attack. How often have we all thrown our squadrons into an opportunity, but several turns back, we went ahead and put in a squadron command, and we forgot about it. Or the opportunity was just so great we couldn't pass it up. When that squadron command comes up, maybe you can't even activate a single one, or you can only activate 1 or 2 instead of the 3 or 4 or even 5 if you have the right combo of upgrades. But you can't because it's out of medium range. This really extends the range pretty significantly. There's a big difference between medium and long range, and for 4 points, it's a great addition to any dedicated carrier. So those are the offensive and the defensive retrofits. I hope you found this video to be helpful, and I hope you continue to watch the rest of the series. So thank you very much. Do you have any disagreements with me? Where would you put some of these rankings? And is there a certain combo that I've left out that you think would be particularly awesome for these powers? So thank you very much, and I hope you continue to listen. Bye.